So, what did you work on that last thing?
Study.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to focus on my fourth finger.
Okay.
Trying to focus on my fingers and having them supple and relax.
Okay. And what do you think Eugene would say about what you just did? Do you think he would say you practiced it really well? What would he ask you to work on if he was right here? Do you think, if anything, would he be really happy with the way it sounds and looks?
I don't know.
Well, I wonder why he's still assigning it. Is there what's the goal of this piece? When is he going to say, "You're done with this, let's move on"? What do you have to do in order to get to that place? Do you know?
When I have to do the second page.
Yeah. What besides the second page? What are you going to have to do for him to say, "That's fantastic"? You don't have to get it out. You can just tell me. What's the goal of this piece? Do you remember?
To get your fingers stronger.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about, doing some exercises away from the violin, right? Do you think your fingers are stronger?
I think more than I started.
Yeah, I think so too. But one of the things I've noticed is that the sound of it doesn't sound that great. So maybe when you focus so much on your fingers, the sound isn't so great. What are you supposed to do with your bow when your fingers are going really fast?
Kind of slow bow.
I don't know. I'm not a violinist. Can you try it tomorrow with a slow bow and see if that works better?
Yeah.
And why wouldn't a fast bow work?
Because your fingers would rush even more than they need to.
Okay. So right now it sounds pretty scratchy. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, kind of.
So why does it sound scratchy and weak if your fingers are so strong? Is it only because you're paying attention to your fingers?
Maybe because I might be on the fingerboard. I'm not really focusing on the bow.
Okay. But it's okay if you're focusing on your fingers, but I think it's sometimes good to remember that there's no sound that comes out of the violin from your fingers. The sound is all from the bow. And if the fingers are touching the other strings, well, that can mess up a clean sound. So I don't think it's just that you're on the fingerboard. I think that it's not a super clean sound.
Also, I might be sliding my bow.
Right. But I'm not saying that you have to do more of it today. You don't. But what I'm asking is, if you're going to work so hard with your fingers and you're not going to pay attention to your bow, then you're never going to get the satisfaction that comes from all the hard work. And sometimes, believe it or not, if you've done the homework of the fingers, if you're focusing on your bow, your fingers will just do their job. Ironically, like a backwards way, sometimes it's important not to focus on your fingers and just to let them do the job that you've taught them. That's why when we talk about when people perform, that we want them to do just what they did in their practice on stage, that at a certain point you just have to trust your fingers and watch your bow. because you've taught your fingers properly, if you've taught them properly, if you have. I wonder if you remember the exercise he said to do on the piano, do you?
I remember it's like with your left hand and it's like or something. I don't remember.
Well, maybe you should ask him next time, because that would be another reason to sometimes label your lessons. You know, you can put down things like finger exercise on piano, and then if you forget, you know where it is. Marcia might remember. But since you have a little extra time this month, I'd like to see you practice that on piano. See if Marcia remembers, because for getting your fingers stronger, I believe he said that piano was the very best thing you could do, wasn't it? Okay. So could you add that to the list for tomorrow? Did you put rosin on your bow and clean off your strings? Well, I'd like for you to get in the habit of doing that every day. Okay? And I really like what you did about your fourth finger. Why don't you see when you do piano tomorrow or later today if you can keep your fourth finger really loose on that too.
I might remember some of it. I know he showed it to me in kind of a recent.
Honey, next time we have a long talk, I think I can pause the video. Okay. And you can pause it when you're cleaning your violin. I think you should pause it now, and you should fix your hair so it's not in your face.
Right.
in order to do 2 strings, it seems to me, even though I'm not a violinist, do you think you could not snarl at me? Thank you. Because really, I'm only trying to be helpful. If it sounds like I'm being critical, it's not intended that way. It's only an idea. And I have lots of great ideas, and I like to talk. And I bet you have lots of great ideas too, and you like it when people listen to what you have to say. So I really remember what Marcia said about trying to play, not pressing so hard, right? Well, I would suggest doing 2 other things. I would suggest using your eyes as much as you can to look at your bow hair, to look at where you are, if you're on the sweet spot or close to the bridge or close to the fingerboard. Why? Why would looking at your bow help?
Can you focus on it, better?
Well, we're visual people. If you can't see, you've lost a lot of information in your world. It doesn't mean you can't make it up with your smell and your hearing and your touch. But if you've lost your vision, you've lost one important piece of information. And if you look at your violin from the end of your fingerboard to the bridge, you'll notice that the string is higher or lower depending on how far away you are from the bridge. So is the string higher or lower at the bridge? Is the string higher away from the violin or lower to the violin when you are at the bridge? Is the string taller or shorter? It's taller. Okay. So, do you think that using the same amount of pressure when something is taller is going to be, or you want to use different pressure, right? Is it easier to push the string down at the bridge or at the fingerboard?
Fingerboard.
Why?
Because when you're at the fingerboard, like right here, it's kind of soft.
That's right. Because the bridge is hard and it's holding the string tighter, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it might be easier to play on both strings at the fingerboard if you're just a limp noodle. But if your arm is not a limp noodle and you have some control of your arm, it's probably not harder to play on 2 strings closer to the fingerboard. It's probably just different, and you get a different sound. In some ways, it might be easier because the strings are kind of more level. Like the farther away, they could be not as even, but close to where they're strung up, they're straighter. So it might be, it's like if you're sawing a piece of wood. If you try to saw the end of the wood, it's skinnier and easier, but it's easier to use your saw on the thick part of the wood once you get it in there. Anyway, so looking can give you some information. What other senses do we have besides our eyes? Right? So you can listen to the sound of it, right? You can actually close your eyes and see if you can hear both strings equally. And what other senses do you have?
Smell.
Right? I don't think that's going to be too helpful.
Or taste wouldn't help either.
That's right. But you have your movement. You could move your arm up or down, right?
And you have touch.
But when you go back, yes, so that's touch. You can feel it. So you should be able to feel when you close your eyes and your ears, whether you're bouncing on the string, or whether you should be able to actually feel how far away from the bridge you are without looking, if you're a really expert violinist. But the other thing you could do is you can check your bow hand, because we know that the bow doesn't work well if your bow hand is not set up as a violin bow. So another thing I would suggest you check is to see if your thumb and your first finger and that second finger, which has been riding up, are correct. So that's a lot of checking to do just to play on 2 strings at the same time. But I bet you, just like the arpeggio exercise, if you go really, really slowly on 2 strings, just like the very first arpeggio that Eugene wants you to learn very slowly, that when you want to speed up and do 2 strings at once, or speed up and do arpeggios, you'll be able to do it much better. So why don't you try it? Why don't you check your bow hand and play on 2 strings and see if you can get it amazingly vibrating, both of them. Are you playing your 4th finger? Why are you doing that? We're just playing 2 open strings. Okay, do it on the fingerboard and let's see how that sounds. Not all the way on the fingerboard, close to it, like you slide down to a lot. And where does it work the easiest on the bow? At the frog, at the tip, or in the middle? Where is it easiest to be on 2 strings?
In the middle.
I think so. Thing to ask you. Remember when Eugene talked about lifting your violin up into the strings?
Yeah.
Why don't you try that? See if that helps, if you can do that at the same time as you're bowing. Cleaner?
A little bit.
Is it harder to play that way or easier or what?
It's a little harder because the bow has more pressure.
Right. I guess that goes back to that old saying, anything hard to do is worth doing. Do it. If Eugene says to do it, I would do it as much as I could remember to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for listening. I thought you were. I could tell. It sounded so much better. I wasn't sure if you were doing it. question. So when you lift up your violin, when do you do it?
Loud.
No, when. You can't, if you lift it up all the time, then you've only done it once, right? So it's something you're doing all the time if you're doing what Eugene asked you to do. Because Eugene didn't ask you, if you just lift it up once, then that's the same thing as just holding up your violin. He's talking about lifting it up a lot, right? All the time.
Also, he said when you get loud, do this, not don't go down.
Well, I'm saying do this means do it all the time. So why don't you try to do it more? Like when you breathe, like when you start a phrase, like when you're getting louder, like da, da, da. I mean, I'm not saying you should move so much all the time like this, but a little bit when you get feelings. Why don't you try to do it with some intention and move your body when you're doing it? Remember, Danielle said it was good to move your body. Well, move it and move your whole arm up when you're doing it. Doesn't it? Immediately it sounds better. So what do we learn from that? Your mom is amazing?
Eugene is right.
Oh, Eugene is right! Got it.
Right.
Darn, I thought it was going to be me. And it was Eugene.
You were the one who remembered, so you get all the credit.
No, I'll take the memory credit. And you can take all the credit for the implementation. Do you know what to implement is?
No.
To put in and carry out. You put in his words and you carried them out.
I don't get it.
It means to stick his words in and use them. To implement. Well, you can look it up later. Get going. So can we call them violin push-ups?
Sure.
Okay, so do your push-ups.
I'm getting used to the bathroom.
Okay. Also, in 15 minutes, Marsha's going to call, so it's a good time to take a little break anyway.
Okay.